At the summit of Huckleberry Knob, the tallest peak in the Unicoi Mountains. Hey everyone, it is Sunday, October the 7th, around 10:30 a.m. and today I'm doing a bunch of short hikes along the Cherohala Skyway of North Carolina and Tennessee. This area is located in the far southwestern corner of the state, over 5 hours drive from me, so I never really get out here. The only other time I've been in this area was last August of 2017, backpacking in neighboring Joyce Kilmer-Slickrock Wilderness for the solar eclipse. And I'm out here today to do a bunch of short hikes along the Skyway, including some notable peak bags that would check off a lot of lists for me on peakbagger.com, including county high points, prominence, range high points, that sort of stuff. None of the hikes I'm planning on doing today are more than 4 miles long round trip, and I think half of them are under 3 miles or under 2 miles even. So I can do a lot in one day and just explore the area. It is the first full weekend of October, which is kind of the official start to the fall season in the North Carolina mountains. And that means that road traffic is really high everywhere in the state, and this is no exception. Although this is not nearly as well traveled as the Blue Ridge Parkway, there's still going to be a fair amount of road traffic today, including a ton of motorcycles. This is a really popular area for motorcycles. And so a lot of the times you might hear that roar in my videos, especially right now if they come by, because I'm about 50 feet from the highway. The Cherohala Skyway runs about 43 miles in length from Robbinsville, North Carolina to Tellico Plains, Tennessee. About 18 miles is on the North Carolina side and 25 miles on the Tennessee side. It climbs to over 5,000 feet along the crest of the Unicoi Mountains, which is a large, rugged, remote range southwest of the Great Smokies Mountains, kind of due west of Fontana, Lake, Bryson City area. I'm doing a quick warm-up hike right now on the Spirit Ridge Trail to the Spirit Ridge Overlook. I think it's only 0.3 miles in length, and it's a paved walkway, so it's handicap accessible. My next hike after this is going to be to the high point of the range, Huckleberry Knob, which is supposed to be an amazing bald. And hopefully it clears up a little bit more in the next hour, because there's still a fair amount of clouds in the sky, even though it's 11 o'clock. And there's a continuous threat of storms today, I think 40 to 50%. For right now, it doesn't look too bad. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this quick one up and then get over to my main hikes of the day that should have better views. This is the end of the Spirit Ridge Trail at the Spirit Ridge Overlook. Not as expansive as I was led to believe by online pictures, but it is a decent view, and you have to remember it's handicap accessible, which you don't really find enough of in the mountains. And one of the drawbacks of this little overlook is we're only about 40 feet above the Cherohala Skyway at the moment, which is not really far enough away to take you above and out of the fray of the motorcycles. Anyways, the viewpoint looks east of the eastern Unicoi Mountains, and it's possible that the larger peaks in the distance are either the Snowbird Mountains or the Cheoah Mountains. I haven't studied the map for today yet, so I'm not sure what I'm looking at, but later on at the other big viewpoints, I'll make sure I know what I'm talking about. Anyways, I'm going to turn around. Next up is Huckleberry Knob. Already on to my second hike of the day, to Huckleberry Knob, the highest peak in the Unicoi Mountains. This is another easy hike. the trailhead started at 5,300 feet, according to the parking lot sign. And Huckleberry Knob is just above 5,550. So only climbing 250 feet or so to the summit. I think the trail is between 1 and 1.5 miles one way. I'll know for sure when I break out the map at the summit. But I believe that the Huckleberry Knob Trail follows this easy forest road grade all the way to the top. And it seems like I'm getting very close to an open field area, possibly the top of Oak Knob. So I'll show you that in a bit. That's where I just ended the last video segment, entering a wide open field along the unranked Oak Knob, and due north is the summit of Huckleberry Knob. Really close to this spot, probably half a mile to go. Looking forward to it. Currently the weather's cooperating, even though there's a chance of 40 to 50% of thunderstorms today, especially in the afternoon. And sky cover was a much worse forecast than what I'm seeing right now. So shaping up to be a good day. I'm at the top of Huckleberry Knob. Beautiful views, but let me show you the map first. This is the Fontana Hiawassee Lakes National Geographic map, 1 in 75,000 scale. This is the best overview of the area, but you can also buy a much more detailed map for the Stratton Creek, Joyce Kilmer Wilderness areas. This is the western half of the map. Santitla Lake and Robbinsville are over here, and Highway 143 is the Cherohala Skyway on the North Carolina side. It becomes TN 165 once it crosses the border. For my first hike, I was here at Spirit Ridge, and now I am here at the Huckleberry Overlook at the top of Huckleberry Knob. This has 360-degree views of the whole region, and you can see that all of my hikes are in pretty close proximity. My next hike is going to be a short one to Huckleberry Bald, and then the only sort of bushwhack I have of the day is starting at Big Junction and going up an old road to Haw Knob, which is probably overgrown, and I wore shorts, so I think I might regret that decision as usual. Then from Haw Knob, I'm going to go over to Mud Gap and follow the Benton McKay Trail to Wig Meadow, which is the third big viewpoint of the day. This Huckleberry Bald and Huckleberry Knob are all bald areas periodically mowed by the National Forest. And then if I have time, I might go down on the Tennessee side to, where is it? Right here. That is the Falls Branch Trail leading to 80-foot Falls Branch Falls in the Stratton Creek Wilderness. It's supposed to be a really nice waterfall that is a pretty easy hike. I think it's 1.8 miles one way. You can see this whole area is not much population. There's a Bald River Wilderness over here, the two biggest wilderness areas in the region up here. I think this is the second largest contiguous wilderness area in the southeast. First is Big Frog and Cohutta Wilderness in Georgia and Tennessee. And I didn't point out earlier, but the Skyway, since it's the National Forest Scenic Skyway, is not managed by the National Park. And so this side is Nantahala National Forest. These are all Nantahala National Forest trails. And then this side is all Cherokee National Forest trails. Summit of Huckleberry Knob, wide grassy bald that seems well maintained by the National Forest Service. I'm glad because this grass could be really high if it wasn't maintained. I've seen the elevation listed 3 different ways on the National Forest topo. On their website, it's 5,556 feet. At the trailhead, it is 5,560 feet. And on Lists of John, it is 5,580 feet. Either way, it is the highest peak in the Unicoi Mountains. And it is the 5th most prominent peak in the southeast, with 3,030 feet of prominence, and the high point of Nantahala National Forest. Currently, I'm looking west into the western Unicoi Mountains before it drops to Tellico Plains. This is the northern view of the crest of the Unicoi Mountains. On the left is Stratton Bald. The long, flat bald leads to the lesser Bald, and the Haoe lead trail drops down to Naked Ground Gap before climbing up again to Cheoah Bald, and the hangover is on the other side of that. Towards the northeast are the Great Smoky Mountains. On the far west or left is Gregory Bald, and then it climbs up towards Thunderhead Mountain. If it was clear, you'd be able to see Clingmans Dome. Looking east across the Santitla Creek watershed and Santitla Lake are the Cheoah Mountains. I believe the tallest pyramidal peak in the middle is Cheoah Bald. Just to the right of that are some of the 5,000 foot peaks in the Nantahala Mountains, including Rocky Bald, Copper Ridge Bald, and somewhere in there is Wine Spring Bald and Hiawassee Bald. Further southeast are the peaks of the Nantahala Wilderness, including Standing Indian if you could see it on a clear day. Looking south-southeast are the peaks of the Fires Creek Rim, which are formed by the Valley River Mountains and the Tusquiti Mountains. Due south is Oak Knob, which I hiked over earlier. This wide peak is Huckleberry Bald with a small clearing on the left. That is my next hike. This is the central crest of the Unicoi Mountains, and have some of the other short hikes I'm going to do later. The highest elevation of the Cherohala Skyway is right here around 5,200 feet as it passes through Big Junction. This round peak is Haw Knob, which I'll do later. And then Wig Meadow is on the other side of that. Heading back up Oak Knob, only a few hundred yards to the car and on to my next hike to Huckleberry Bald and probably lunch. Just wanted to say Huckleberry Knob was spectacular. I knew it was a grassy bald, but wasn't expecting it to be so nice. Comparable to Roan Highlands, Pond Mountain, Max Patch. Get 360-degree views, and you don't get many of those in the southwestern area of North Carolina. I'd have to rank that among the top 3 views in this area of the state, including Wesser Bald Lookout Tower and the Hangover. Mind you, I haven't been to many of the peaks in this region, but there's no way this is not top 5 overall. And on a crystal clear day, maybe late fall, sometime in the winter when the highway's open, it'd be hard to beat that. You can see so many different unique mountain ranges in this part of the state. Highly recommend it. Really easy hike too. You can bring the whole family. This is the short half-mile Huckleberry Bald trail. Seems like it's going to be gravel all the way to the top. Barely any elevation change from the parking to the summit. And really interesting sparse northern hardwood forest up here. The summit clearing of Huckleberry Bald. It's Let's go check it out. I passed by the true summit of Huckleberry Bald a couple hundred yards ago. This is actually a really, really long, thin, rectangular field, easily a quarter-mile long or even more. But the true summit didn't have any views. It stands at 5,429 feet. So I kept on going towards the northeastern edge before it starts dropping down to the trees. And we get wide open views due north of Huckleberry Knob. You can see the bald right on top there. And we get views to the north, kind of into the Tellico Creek Wilderness. And then towards the northwest, I think I'm going to have lunch at this curve here. That's the highest point of the Cherohala Skyway, like 5,300 something feet. I think it's the Nantahala picnic area. And then my hike after this is Haoe Knob, that big rounded peak. But this is a little bit underwhelming compared to Huckleberry Knob, but considering it's just over a half mile, very easy from the parking lot, well worth the side trip. To give you an idea of how long this bald is, that northern viewpoint that I just came from was about 400 feet in that direction. And now it's very long stretch of rectangular bald going west. The high point is up there on the left, and some people are just rounding the high point area right now in the distance there. And after you reach the high point, you got to drop a couple hundred feet before you leave the bald. So this is pretty massive. It is around 1:45 p.m. and I finished lunch and I'm on my fourth hike of the day. I know I said that Haoe Knob would be up next, but that's not what I'm doing. Instead, I'm hiking to Whig Meadow. And there's not a big reason for that, other than I was getting up to the Big Junction Overlook to park for Haoe Knob. And it's a really small overlook, and it was almost full with motorcycles. So I figured I'd keep going down and turn around, but the highway descended for a few miles without really any good turnaround points. So I said, screw it, I'll just do it on the way out. Stopped at some picnic tables, ate lunch, and kept driving to Mud Gap. So now I'm heading south from Mud Gap on the Benton Mackay Trail. And now I'm in Tennessee, in Cherokee National Forest. The sign at the parking lot said, Whig Meadow is an easy 1.5 mile hike from Mud Gap. And so far it's not bad, but this is really the first trail I've been on today. Everything else has been paved or gravel or wide forest roads. And this is more of a single track rocky trail, although it does get a lot of use. That's why it has a lot of rock and gravel. The Benton Mackay Trail is an alternative to the AT in Georgia and North Carolina. It runs about 275 miles in length, and it actually begins at Springer Mountain, just like the AT. Once it leaves Springer Mountain, it kind of parallels the AT towards the west, heading through the Coheta Wilderness, Big Frog Wilderness, and then it cuts over towards the Bald River Gorge, and then heads north up to here, right where I'm at, to the crest of the Unicoi Mountains, entering the Tellico Creek and Joyce Kilmer wildernesses. Then it enters the national park, and I believe it follows the eastern fringe of the national park border, following the Lakeshore Trail. And then once it gets to like Cherokee and stuff, it follows probably Enlow Creek, Beach Gap, Balsam Mountain, Mount Sterling Ridge, and then eventually ends at Davenport Gap at the northeastern border where it meets the Appalachian Trail again. So if you're looking for a moderate through hike, this is definitely a good option. Way less trail traffic than the AT, so much less. And you can also do a really big 500 something mile loop using both trails. Anyways, I think I'm about halfway to Whig Meadow, which is not a ranked peak, but it is a maintained bald, and hopefully it has some really good views. Looks like that's the top of Whig Meadow. Let's go check it out. Looks pretty cool. At the top of Whig Meadow, which is just under 5,000 feet, another really cool bald in the Unicoi Mountains. I'm actually pretty surprised how many balds they have here, considering they're at lower elevations than the Roan Highlands, and in general just don't have as severe weather as the mountains in northern North Carolina. But surprising thing about Whig Meadow, a lot of this grass is turning brown already, and the grasses on top of Hooper Bald and Huckleberry Knob were pretty green, but this does have some pretty severe western exposure compared to those two. Currently I'm looking west, and I think directly below me are the headwaters of the Tellico River and the Bald River, and that's the Bald River Gorge Wilderness area down there. Pretty remote section of Cherokee National Forest. And I'm not sure looking west if I'm still looking at the Unicoi Mountains, or that's the beginning of the Cohutta Mountains of Tennessee and Georgia, which would make them part of the Big Frog and Cohutta Wilderness areas. Cherohala Skyway continues along this ridge line. You can kind of see to the northwest, this pointy peak has a little cut. So I believe the Skyway cuts right through there before dropping all the way down to Tellico Plains. Something interesting I didn't know earlier was the Robbinsville area is around 2,600 feet, and the highest elevations of the Skyway are around 5,300 feet. And I believe, unless I just didn't remember the map correctly at one of the overlooks, Tellico Plains is at 950 feet. So that makes a really severe elevation change between the Tennessee side of the Skyway and the highest peaks of the Unicois. Mud Gap, I believe, is somewhere through there, or maybe it's on the other side of this. And due east, Haw Knob rises directly above. That's what I'll bag later. And Big Junction is the gap right through there. I'm at Big Junction for the Haw Knob bushwhack, and I might quit before I even get started. This is horrible. There's an old forest road track that goes to the top of Haw Knob in just over half a mile, and I heard, or I read, it was overgrown from trip reports, but this is not what you want to deal with. These things are head height, and I don't know, I might quit and try to do another hike. This is miserable. It's around 4:40 p.m. just finished my last hike of the day. What started as a promising day of peak bagging and viewfinding along the Cherohala Skyway has ended with disappointment through a comedy of errors and mishaps for the last couple of hours. After Whig Meadow, I kept driving west into Tennessee to go check out the trailheads for West Rattlesnake Rock and also Falls Branch Falls. I was going to hike one of those depending on what the trailhead said in terms of distance and elevation change. Well, I couldn't find those trailheads. It turns out that once you go into Tennessee, all of the parking areas are devoid of any sort of information. The North Carolina side is much better. Every parking area has maps and information about the trails in that immediate vicinity, and Tennessee does not. It just has a singular trail sign, if that. So I drove past both of those parking areas, and once I figured that out, I turned around and I stopped at the Brushy Ridge Overlook, which I figured was the trailhead for Falls Branch Falls. It wasn't. That trail actually goes under a viaduct, and you have to connect to that trail from the West Rattlesnake Rock parking area. By the time I got there and figured it out, it was around 3:30, and I figured with a minimum 3.6 miles round trip distance and a substantial drop into the Falls Branch drainage, that would take around 2 hours, and I wouldn't get done until 5:30. And I wouldn't get done with Haw Knob until 6:30. So I figured I'll skip that, go ahead and peak bag Haw Knob, which is what I really wanted to do. And then you saw what happened there. That old roadbed was horrible. Those weeds were up to my head, covered in thorns and spider webs and all kinds of seeds that just sprayed all over me. So I just gave up really easily. And I figured I would come back sometime late fall, winter, early spring when the skyway's open, and do that when I'm fully clothed and mentally prepared for that kind of bushwhack. So I figured I'd end up doing the Wrights Creek Nature Trail Loop, which is the first hike on the eastern side of the Cherohala Skyway, and it's listed as a 0.5 mile lollipop loop, easy for all ages, that sort of thing. And this trail also sucked. There was nothing to see, and since there's nothing to see, no one ever hikes here, and it was very overgrown. I kept running in the spider webs and nettle and also all these little flower things that just spray seeds all over my clothing. And the trail never even dove down to Wrights Creek, which was very disappointing. So I don't even think I'm going to put that on hiking upward, and I don't recommend anyone doing this. It's kind of a waste of time. Just go ahead and do the Spirit Ridge Trail for a warm-up. That's much nicer and has an overlook. So I was planning on doing a full day, about 12 to 13 miles and 6 hikes, and I ended up only doing 8 miles or 9 miles and 5 hikes, and I missed out on a significant peak bag and a really cool waterfall. So I have to come back again, maybe for a weekend backpacking through the Bald River Gorge Wilderness or the Citico Creek Wilderness. So I hope you enjoyed this very scattershot video of the Cherohala Skyway. At least I'm ending early, and I'm going to go try out Innovation Brewery in Sylva, North Carolina. Never been there before, and I've heard good things. So hope you enjoyed this, and see you guys next time.